In three, two, one. Actually, it already did the countdown, so I'm a little late here, but hey everybody, Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen, leading the movement for movement and bringing you another edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday training, where I take a concept, a strategy, an exercise, a practice, something in programming, the all-encompassing world of autism fitness, and bring it to you in a way that is understandable, usable, and applicable to your fitness and adapted PE programs. And in this Autism Fitness Tuesday training, actually, before I get started, please definitely subscribe. And if there is something that you'd like me to cover in a future edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday training, put that in the comments below. It helps the channel. And now, what I'm going to cover is the concept and strategy of backstepping. Backstepping is a strategy when we want to re-engage the athlete with the exercise that they were doing because they got dysregulated or they got distracted, a combination of the two. They got dysregulated because they got distracted, and we want to have them back on track and focus so that they're able to complete the exercise. And there are a few important reasons for that I'm going to get into in a minute. So we use this strategy. We have our what we call the Great 8 adaptive or positive behavior support strategies that we use in autism fitness programming, and this is just one of them. Backstepping can have a wonderful effect both for the physiological but also in setting the expectation for the session. One of the biggest things that we can do early and often is maintain the expectation, have that known and understood by our autism or neurodivergent athlete or athletes as well, so that we can build a positive rapport, build that reciprocity, and we can keep everything in the world of known and understood. Now, if that needs to be visualized on a board or with some type of communication device on the iPad, absolutely positively. We want to make sure that the athlete is aware of the structure. So backstepping is a process in which we not physically, but we bring the athlete back to the last point of success that they had with a particular exercise once they get dysregulated. Now, there are a few different reasons why an athlete might get off task or might be dysregulated. That's a subject for a different video, of course, but many of our athletes have either some internal stimulus, or they may get distracted, they may wander off. We may understand immediately what the cause of that particular behavior is. We may not know immediately. We may never know what that stimuli is. It might be something in the environment, and if we can remove that environmental stimuli, great. If we can't, look, that's the world. We have to live in it, and we have to make it as comfortable for our athletes, but we're not going to be able to resolve everything. So we want to make the situation, the environment, and the nature of the fitness or adapted PE session as amenable to their needs as possible. Right? But that's not going to be always 100% the case, and that's all right. That's why we have different strategies. That's why we have our Grade 8, and let's get into the backstepping portion of that as well. So with backstepping, once that athlete gets dysregulated, we need to determine what our strategy is going to be. Sometimes the strategy is to do nothing and just wait it out and allow the athlete to re-engage, reinitiate it. That happens oftentimes. What you want to avoid is continuing to verbally prompt somebody. Anybody is likely to get annoyed or frustrated with somebody saying, okay, keep going, okay, it's time to keep going, and just repeating yourself. That's an easy way to get an athlete frustrated, to get them overwhelmed, and to get them not enjoying their current circumstance. So we want to avoid escalating the situation and waiting until the athlete is calm and focused, because that's when they're going to do their best performance of the exercise, when they are dialed into what they are doing, not unlike any other human being. So with backstepping, if we're going to make the determination, and the ways to pick this out are, all right, the athlete is no longer performing this particular exercise to the best of their current ability. That's one, because they've stopped or the mechanics of the exercise have broken down. Now, this bisects a little bit here, because the athlete might be physically fatigued from performing the exercise, although in the early stages of initiating a strength and fitness program, that's usually not the case. It's more on the adaptive side, if we're looking at this from the perspective of the PAC profile, physical, adaptive, and cognitive, the issue here is unlikely to be one of physical fatigue unless they are using a little too much weight or going too many reps, where we see the performance breakdown of that overhead press or that band row or the band pull down to the squat, whatever the exercise is. Typically, we're going to see that happen with a strength exercise. But if it's not actually physical fatigue and we see that the athlete, because they're getting distracted or dysregulated, they're not focusing on their current level of best performance, not the highest level of performance that is achievable, but their current level of best performance, we need to make a decision about whether we are going to intervene. And when we do, we intervene softly. Not with stop, you've got to stop this set, and again, overwhelming and doing something that's entirely unnecessary for the athlete, but saying, okay, pause, and 3, 4, whatever it is, right? Whatever particular rep that athlete is on at the time where the movement starts to either go too fast or start to fall apart. Pause, big breath, and start again. So that's one scenario in which the athlete has performance that is starting to dip or starting to get away from what we know they are capable of doing, and we know that it's not because of physiological fatigue. And the best way to know this is, of course, to get to know your athlete. You may not know this in the first, second, or third session, but by session 10, session 12, you're going to know this about the athlete too, because we want to look at it from an individualized perspective. So of course, you want to be running that PAC profile. Hint, if you're an Autism Fitness Certified Pro, you have access to this, so you know how to implement that assessment. All right? So then we have situations where an athlete is doing 2 or 3 or 4 repetitions of a particular exercise, and they drop the sandbell or they drop the band, and they wander off. They become engaged in some type of other activity completely unrelated to the exercise that they're doing. In that case, and this is where expectations become so important, in that case, we don't want to play chaser. And I've seen this done before, where someone starts chasing the athlete around and saying, oh, well, it looks like you want to do something else, so let's do that, because it completely warps the expectation. If you're doing overhead presses, let's finish overhead presses first, and then if you need a break or if you need some self-regulation time, absolutely, sure, but we want to keep it within the confines of that structure. There are extenuating circumstances, of course, where we have escalating behaviors, but we're talking about an athlete just getting a little bit dysregulated, wandering off, getting distracted, and we have the opportunity to bring them back again, or have them come back of their own volition to the exercise situation that we were in previously. So we want to bring them back, and at that point, rather than start from rep 2 or 3 or 4, we think about, from the physical perspective, the training effect. If we start this exercise from repetition 5 or 6, it's really not going to have the same training effect as if we were restarting the exercise from rep number 1, because the reality is if they only did 2 or 3 repetitions, it's really not going to have much of a training effect, meaning creating strength and stability and motor planning. It's not going to do that. So we want to restart as though it is the first time again doing this set for the athlete. And what that does, not only physically, we are enhancing the training effect of that exercise, but from an adaptive perspective, we're also maintaining that expectation of first finish the entire set of this exercise, whether it's 8 reps or 10 reps or 12 reps, whatever it is. And one of the nice things about this is, rather than have this whole typically meaningless conversation with an individual about, well, the expectation is that you complete all of these repetitions and all of these sets, every once in a while it makes sense to have that conversation, but certainly in a respectful way with all of our athletes, regardless of their level of communication. We do want to get across the purpose of what we're doing. Rule number 1 in Autism Fitness, of course, is respect the athlete, so we want to bring that into everything that we're doing. So we restart that set of squats or presses or band rows, and the athlete completes it, and then great. Contingency has that green light. You want to take a break, you want to do a preferred activity, fine, totally cool. So backstepping from an adaptive perspective maintains the expectation of the exercise performance and completing that set. And from a cognitive perspective, and this is where we have some overlap in that Venn diagram between physical, adaptive, and cognitive, between adaptive and cognitive, understanding what the expectation is, in this case, finishing every repetition on that particular set of exercise, is going to set a standard for that athlete. So that consistency of we're always going to finish this set, again, unless there's something extremely extenuating in a given situation, is going to be consistent. Right? So physically, the reason that we backstep an exercise is we want it to have that training effect, and we want the athlete to perform that exercise to the best of their current ability with as many repetitions as is going to be appropriate and necessary in that particular set. So if we know that the athlete can do 12 repetitions of an overhead press with a pair of 4-pound sandbells, then doing 3 repetitions and then ending the set isn't going to have a training effect, right? That's not how our athlete is going to continue to get stronger with that movement pattern and be able to move up to 6 pounds and eventually 8 pounds and then 10 pounds. So physically, backstepping is going to give us the opportunity to strengthen that particular exercise. From an adaptive perspective, backstepping is going to be a tool for having the athlete focused and ready and calm. And if they get dysregulated during the first set, that's okay. We can come back to it. But the key is coming back to it and having the athlete perform that exercise. And then oftentimes we're going to have a contingency base here. Okay, finish overhead presses and then take a break, preferred activity, whatever. And then from a cognitive perspective, that's where we see a lot of interaction between the adaptive and the cognitive. So the athlete understands the expectation. It's been done before. It's consistent. So that's going to typically lower anxiety as well. So we have this nice interplay between the cognitive functioning and the adaptive functioning. So all 3 of our PAC skills, physical, adaptive, and cognitive, are met here with using backstepping. So backstepping is not going to be something that we use in each and every situation. That's why we have our Autism Fitness Grade 8 of the different positive behavior strategies that we have in the Autism Fitness Pro curriculum. But backstepping can be a very useful one, particularly for athletes who have a habit of leaving a set early as well. And the more often this is used, and when it is used correctly, we typically see a reduction in those dysregulated behaviors when they're occurring during the set of that exercise, which is beneficial for everybody involved, the athlete, the coach, and the overall success of that session. So that is a little bit about backstepping, how we utilize it in our sessions. I'd love to know if this is helpful for you. If you have any questions, if you have anything that you want to learn about in a future edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday training, definitely leave that in the comments below. And if you are ready to become an Autism Fitness Certified Pro, that link is down there as well. Scroll down, you'll see it there. Thank you for watching. I hope this has been helpful for you. I am Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen, leading the movement for movement. And that is all for this Tuesday training. I will see you next time.